People, what's going on? Welcome back to the club. So England lost another final, another European Championships final, and the dust still hasn't settled fully on that. But we have heard the news that Gareth Southgate is walking away like Craig David from the England job, from the FA, and who knows where they'll go next. We'll look at who could be next, but we've got John, we've got Rory with us here to react to that news. Lads, what are you saying? Gareth Southgate has left. What are your immediate thoughts?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because when somebody leaves, I think the easiest thing to do is to paint their time in a quite positive colour. You naturally kind of go, thank you, Gareth. And I think that's the right thing to do. You go, thank you for your time. Because much like on the day that somebody has a funeral, you don't flag the bad. Do you know what I mean? If you go to somebody's funeral, you wouldn't have a conversation and go, I'll tell you what, he nicked my bird when we were 15. You go, no, he's been my friend for 45 years. Like, you focus on the positive. So people are
Speak
really...
from experience.
That sounded personal.
Yeah. People are really focusing on the positive, and I think it's right to do. The important thing, though, is that what doesn't get lost in focusing on the positive is the fact that it was abject failure. To see it for its truest colour...
Let's talk about what the reasons why it could be good shortly after. But do you think overall, Gareth Southgate, there's been talk about him being the best manager and all these. Do you think, what's his status as England manager?
Well, you can't be the best. If we've won a World Cup, you can't be the best. Obviously, it's a lot before our time. But he's definitely the second best manager. I mean, in my lifetime, when I was a kid, I watched us fail out of every tournament. I think, like Rory said, you have to give him his flowers and say thank you. He's been brilliant. I think he's handled things off the field amazingly. I think as a guy, you look at him and you go, I'm happy that he represented my country on a national level. Like the things he said, the way he conducted himself after drama that is going to come with being the England manager. But ultimately, when you're conducting a post-mortem of a manager, you go, has he won anything? And he hasn't won anything.
And crucially, which makes him slightly different to other managers. You know, you spoke about the managers of your youth, for example. They didn't really have the utensils. So some would have done. Some perhaps did underachieve in that era as well. But generally speaking, it was very difficult to win for various managers.
You had a few stars, but not the luxury that England...
Exactly. For example, Glenn Hoddle's team, whilst it was excellent, was probably not the best around.
Yeah,
equally,
you look at
Sven.
some of the names, they were still kids at the time, some of them, like the Beckhams.
And equally, you know when Sven went to O2, you know, we call it our golden generation. It was a wonderful team, there's no doubt about that. But as wonderful as our team were, we came up against one of the most dazzling Brazil teams in the quarter-final.
And all due respect to these players, but you also had Danny Mills and Trevor Sinclair playing.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to disrespect them.
Yeah, no, Trevor Sinclair was excellent, but Trevor Sinclair was excellent, but yes, there was some average players in that squad for sure. But what we came up against, whilst we were calling ourselves the golden generation, we came up against the 3 R's, didn't we? Ronaldo, Rivaldo, Ronaldinho, with Juninho doing all the magic behind. So we played them in a quarter-final and we got beat. Southgate never really had that. He never really had that moment. We didn't come up against the Brazil
and when they did,
the era.
France, for example.
Yeah, but even in the France game, do you know, maybe the Qatar World Cup is the jewel in the crown of Southgate because it's probably the one World Cup where he pretty much got everything right. I was slightly uninspired with the USA draw in the middle, but we battered Iran in the first game. We battered Wales in the last
like
game
that as well.
I think at the time Senegal were the AFCON champions, and we made light work of them in the last 16, and then we came up against France. Kane missed a penalty, and that was that. But that tournament aside, where I think Southgate was quite unlucky, that tournament aside, I think every single exit you can label at Gareth Southgate.
I think one of the things with Southgate that you can probably say at this moment in time is he was the right man when he arrived. And when he arrived, I don't think England had the luxury that they have now. For example, you still had an aging Ashley Young playing at fullback, etc. And I think he was amazing at that time for a nation that didn't have the expectations, weren't very united. He built the expectations up through results, through getting the team together and through getting the fans back on side. And I thought he was almost like a politician in doing that. He was very good in that era of time, in that period of time. And then maybe for a few tournaments after that. But I feel like now when you see him compared to then, I think with the expectations rising I think with the squad becoming one of the best in the world, some managers are great with a squad that's not very, like, you know, that they got underdog.
Yeah.
I think once he's got the top dog team, I think he's struggled to handle that. And I think times in this Euros, I don't think the players have been fully on side with what's been going on. And hence some of the performances.
It's so nuanced, isn't it? Because quite often in football, it's seen as being binary and you have to be one thing or the other. Are you Southgate in or are you Southgate out? Do you like him? Don't you like him? With this, I think that there is, in the Venn diagram, I think there is this real strong grey area, which is, I'm really grateful to Southgate. I think he did well. I think there are huge positives to his time with England, but ultimately I think it was abject failure.
See,
and they coexist.
That's where I struggle with
I think the failure is more recent rather than, I think earlier on he did really well. I think
he's been a failure. He's been a failure. I think it's been a failure almost from the get-go. When I think about the various failures, like off the top of my head here, right? We should have beaten Croatia. Whether we would have beaten France in Moscow, we should have beaten Croatia. The reason that we didn't beat Croatia was that, what's his name? The manager, Dalic? Dalic, the Croatian manager, he worked out that if you pin our fullbacks back, Ali and Lingard won't do the midfield. And he got done it. So the reason we lost in Moscow to Croatia was because Dalic worked out a way to do it. The reason that we got done by Koeman in the Nations League, which I think people they seem to not necessarily flag. When we lost that Nations League, it was so annoying because we got out of a group with Spain and Croatia. We played really well. We beat Spain away. And had we won that tournament could have been the way that Mourinho would always say, win the League Cup, go on and win the league. Win the Nations League. It wouldn't have been particularly tough. I think we would have had Portugal in the final. Win the Nations League, beat the Dutch in the semi, win the Nations League, go on and win the Euros at Wembley.
As winners.
Then Wembley, man. Now that was Mancini.
That's where it should have ended, I think. Go on, John.
Yeah, but I just think it's interesting with international management. I think you've got to move the goalposts of success, like for club level, and obviously England being a huge nation, similar to Manchester United, Chelsea for you boys. You've got so much more opportunity at those clubs to win a trophy. We're talking about, and I know you spoke about Nations League, but no one really cares, right? You're talking about the World Cup or the Euros. You've got 7 games every 2 years. And if you don't win that trophy, ultimately it's a failure. But that's where I kind of struggle with it. You ended one of your points there by calling him a failure. And I don't know if necessarily not winning a trophy at international level makes you a failure for me.
I think the way England played this tournament, though, I think that
it was a failed tournament, wasn't it?
There's
It was
no
a
arguing
failed
that.
tournament.
Yeah, there's no arguing that. And I think the Jude Bellingham, there's been a few things from some journalists saying he wasn't too happy with some of the tactics and coming out around the tournament and saying things behind closed doors. I think there's no doubt that if you're Phil Foden, Jude Bellingham, players that play at the highest level for the biggest clubs in the world, you're sitting there going, this guy might not have a clue.
England also,
I think that's obvious. You can see it. Foden's played left wing half the tournament. And he's Premier League Player of the Season in 10.
England had him. They scored and they had him.
Yeah.
And then they went straight back to
straight to that default.
That's interesting. Do you know what nobody's picked up on? Nobody's picked up. You know when people go, this is a conversation I had with my mates. I saw the England possession stats against Spain, which were obviously heavily weighted against Spain. And I went to my mate, well, that's ridiculous. And he went, it's Spain. I went, I don't care.
Yeah.
Why is it a given that Spain will have more of the ball than England? Why is it a given that Jude Bellingham, Phil Foden, Harry Kane can't control the tempo of a game? Why do we say...
Some world-class players out there. And some players that play for managers that do it on a regular basis. And that's why I've often said the Nations League was a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Because he went in it with a full squad and still got relegated. He was playing Kane and stuff every game. Why weren't you trialing things?
Now there's failure. There's failure. We played 6 games. We won none. Fucking hell. Like, that's failure, isn't it? I mean, that couldn't be more... What's the definition of failure? Well, if you play 6 times, you lose 4, you draw 2, you win none, you failed.
Sum up Southgate's stint as manager in a sentence or a paragraph, John.
I think...
Let John go. Let John.
Okay.
But how would you... If you were going to write a eulogy for him, what would it say?
Yeah. Restored faith.
In a newspaper, though. So
I feel like he's restored faith in us and respect as a nation, but it's time to pass it on to someone who can probably bring it home.
It's time to go.
It's time to go.
Do you know what? I think on basically every metric, apart from football, and the first team, the England first team, I think he's done brilliantly. On everything, on all of it, and there are other responsibilities.
People at home,
That is big,
I'm
yeah.
going to be the crowd for a
Yeah.
minute. But Rory, 2 finals, a semi-final.
Yeah. I mean, it's irrelevant, isn't it? It's completely irrelevant.
I think he's like the Solskjaer for Man United, who came in, cheered us all up, got us back doing what we should be doing, and then had to leave. Like, you have to leave now.
I
think you've served your
like
purpose,
him.
and
I think he's a
kinda
good.
like that.
I think he's a good man. I think he's a good man who's done quite a lot of good. Who was ultimately completely out of his depth in terms of the actual management, but he's a good guy who's done a lot of good.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's move on. Who's next? The favourites for the job, as it stands, as we speak. Eddie Howe's 2-1 favourite, and you've got Graham Potter behind him. Lee Carsley, Frank Lampard, who was 20-1 but is now at 6s, and Jurgen Klopp, who's 8-1. John, when you see that list of names,
Yeah.
who do you laugh at and who do you go, please?
Yeah,
Come on, make it big.
two names stand out for me: Eddie Howe, Lee Carsley, and I can explain why for different reasons. Laughing at it, I think there's a strange thing in England where it's like Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola, and I think like, why would they want the England job? Like, we are biased. I don't think necessarily that Jurgen Klopp would sit there and think of this big honour, like he's done well in this country at management, so he's going to want to take the England job on.
Can I give you one reason?
Why? Yeah.
Because you become richer than you could dream.
You have a part-time job.
No, because if it's above, no, I don't even agree. What, 5 million a year, Southgate?
No, yeah.
Mancini,
Yeah, no,
Mancini's
but-
on 21
If they
million.
get Purple Pep,
but
Mancini's on
what-
21 million doing
but
Saudi Arabia.
John,
If it's about money.
extrapolate from there though. Like so 5 million Southgate. How many times better is Klopp to Southgate, and then do the math?
Yeah, fine.
Do the math.
Yeah, fine. 10 million to manage England, whatever. But Mancini's on
Part-time job.
100 million a year?
21 million Mancini's on for Saudi Arabia. You don't think Klopp has that sort of pull to go out to Saudi, get something like that?
No, but then the
But
thing
it's a
is,
proper-
look at the squad you've got.
But
Look at the squad of
I
players
just
you've
don't.
got.
I don't agree that these managers would sit there and think, "Oh, I'd love to do that." I think Pep, there's an argument because maybe he's Basque, Spanish. He wouldn't want to take the Spanish team on. But like Jurgen Klopp, I don't see why as a German he's even.
Catalonian.
Yeah,
He'd probably
sorry,
hate you
Basque,
for calling him
Catalonia. Yeah. Probably annoyed a lot of people with
It's
that.
more Barcelona
Yeah.
than Bilbao.
Yeah, but yeah, no. So I don't know. I think Eddie Howe for me and Lee Carsley are probably the only two names on that list.
Why Lee Carsley? Because a
Lee
lot of people do laugh at Lee Carsley. He's obviously there with the 23s.
Yeah, so I watched him manage the 20. Well, he managed the 21s
21s.
with Cole Palmer, with Gibbs White,
Yeah.
with
Anthony
Angel
Gordon,
Gomez.
Levi Colwill.
Gordon has played a tournament, and he plays an attacking style of football. Ironically, I mean, he looks like Phil Mitchell. He looks like the most Brexit bloke you've ever seen, but he plays this attacking football. 2-8s at the moment. He had a double pivot of Curtis Jones and I think Angel Gomez in the tournament we won, with Gordon up front, just flying in behind, winning player of the tournament.
We didn't concede a goal in that
Didn't
tournament.
concede a goal. We went, I think, Portugal 1-0, Israel 3-0, and the final 1-0 over Spain.
Spain, yeah.
And we just looked great doing it. And I think
Also, there's a
he
track
knows
record,
the players.
isn't there?
He's been at the
De La
FA.
Fuente.
Yeah,
De La Fuente, the FA like an inside appointment.
Yeah, I think the FA would like him. So I think there's already a few things pointing towards him for me.
Yeah, I think Lee Carsley won't get the job,
Yeah,
but I agree with you that he's a strong shout for it.
yeah.
I agree that he's a strong shout. Potter is one that I feel is a real front runner that I really don't want.
No, me neither.
I mean, do you know when you think about Graham Potter, whenever you heard him speak about his time at Chelsea, he really would lament the eyeballs on him, the intensity of the job, the prestige of the job. He just found it too big. Like the job ate him whole, didn't it?
Yeah, and if you
find the Chelsea job too big,
yeah.
if you think the Chelsea job is pressured, if you think that there's eyeballs on you when you're the Chelsea manager and headlines being written about you when you're the Chelsea manager, I mean, he hasn't got a clue, has he? Imagine how he would cope with being the England manager.
You can't. I don't think you can step up to that level of pressure. Times it by 10. The
Yeah.
England manager and the Manchester United manager for me are just the hardest two positions in the country. So
Is it a position though which is only really, really pressurised around a tournament?
Yeah, but then it is.
but then it's like times
Could he not
100.
kind of
isn't it?
like bed himself in a little bit?
Yeah,
Really
look,
not-
I think Potter wants it. I think Potter has turned down some I couldn't believe it. You know, I don't know if I know you'll agree with me, Ad, but John, you're a touch younger than us. The Ajax job for me is always going to be like one of the most iconic jobs that you can take in football. As a club, as a city, what they
Suits him as well.
represent. Yeah, Johan Cruyff. Potter turned it down, you know. So I thought he must be turning this down in order to facilitate a role maybe somewhere else.
And you think that's England?
And I think it's probably trying to keep the door open for England. But maybe he's not keeping the door open for England, and maybe the Ajax job isn't quite the job that maybe we would see it as being.
I think I worry
think
with
he's a great
Potter as well because he played great football at Brighton, and then he left for Chelsea. They got De Zerbi, and with basically the same squad, De Zerbi performed way better. So I think how good is he?
Yeah.
And how is he going to handle that pressure from the media?
Also, the big players, looking after big players, didn't exactly shine at that. I know he didn't have long,
No.
but he didn't exactly shine at that. So Potter's the one I certainly don't want. Out of the realistic, I don't think Frank Lampard is a realistic.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think it's like a genuine thing. I know, weirdly, Gary Lineker's really been banging the drum for Lampard.
He had him on his podcast. Maybe it was
He also done him over
favour
with
thing.
about his bald patch, didn't he?
Yeah, he dug
Probably
him
trying
right
to,
out.
probably trying to
Well,
smooth things over.
I
with
was a
it,
bit
like-
rude. I was a bit
That's
rude.
bad.
But I think he'd be a great England manager.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, come on.
Yeah.
That's what, yeah.
But of the
When will they
realistic
make an
ones-
announcement? Is it going to be something they do soon? Is it?
It's got to be because they link up in 4, 5, 6 weeks already, don't they?
I think they must know, or at least they must know who
it's
they're
one
going to
of two
interview.
or
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
three.
But that's why I think it leads back to Lee Carsley. I don't see Eddie Howe. We haven't spoken about yet.
I
You
think-
think he's the outstanding candidate? I'm assuming.
I really want it to be Howe.
Does he leave Newcastle for that?
Well, it's interesting. It's very interesting. But I think he does, primarily because I don't know if you saw on my social media, I found a clip of him saying that he would. I found a clip of him overtly stating that the England job is the job and nothing would stand in my way of taking the England job. So I think that he would, but it's a very interesting angle now, isn't it? Because international football and the prestige of international football has diminished over the years. And club football, Champions League football, Premier League football has elevated to a level that's almost unrecognisable. So, when I was a kid, Glenn Hoddle did well at Chelsea. England came in for Glenn Hoddle and everybody at Chelsea went, well, obviously you
Yeah,
take
see you later.
the England job. Good luck. Yeah, we wouldn't dream of standing in your way. Thank you for everything you've done at Chelsea. Go and do the England job. Now, I don't think Chelsea fans would be like that. You don't leave Chelsea to be the England manager because it just doesn't work like that. Like back in the day, you go, whoever wins the league, get them for England. Whereas now, whoever won the league wouldn't dream of taking the England job because it's not as big a job.
No.
But is the Newcastle job, Newcastle on in Europe, is Eddie Howe's
Also,
currently in
after
a
last
better
season,
job?
is his position as secure as it was?
Well, I saw Staveley's left Newcastle and she was a big supporter of his. But it feels like he's on the precipice of success at Newcastle, which would give him godlike status up there. Like you take them their first trophy for about 100 years. It's going to do you a favour in the city, isn't it?
But then, what would
winning
their
it with
first trophy do?
What do you think's a bigger job?
England.
Yeah.
But then managing in a Premier League for Newcastle, you don't know what their riches are going to be like. But
an
that's whether
ambitious
you're the
club.
man if you think you're going to be there in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, all right, cool. But if you think, oh, Staveley's gone. If I have a bad start to the season, I could be gone. And like you say, the England job seemingly is his pinnacle.
I want him though. Do you think he's the right man for the job?
I think on paper he's probably the right man for the job. I'd still go with Lee Carsley for the reason.
Over Howe?
Yeah, I think that the FA would probably lean towards him as well, being that he's in their system and they seem to like that. That's where Southgate got the job from in the first place. But yeah, over Howe, I'd have him.
That's interesting.
What's
John.
your prediction for who they pick, bro? Not who you want.
I think they'll go for Eddie Howe. I think they will go all guns blazing for Howe. And if they can't get him, I think it will. Got a bad feeling it'll be Potter then Carsley. I think that's the order.
So with the order of the arc.
Yeah, I'd prefer John's shout though. I think it should. I would like Eddie Howe, if not Howe Carsley. But I've got a bad feeling that Graham Potter, he can't just be loitering around turning big jobs down for no reason.
Yeah, no, it is strange. But yeah, I just think that Lee Carsley would bring a more attacking football with the same principles of Southgate, with the same yes sir, no sir attitude to the FA. He's never going to step against them. He's never going to, they like him. He's been there for a while. So I think that's the perfect fit. Yeah, go on.
No,
So Michael Owen tweeted this. I would love Eddie Howe as England manager, but he's already in a top job. He'd be right behind Graham Potter too. Then he said, and this is someone that played for Sven, whatever we do, I'm of the opinion that the England manager should be English. Is that a reason why it won't be Klopp or Guardiola or someone, or will they just not take the job anyway?
I don't think the FA. That's Michael Owen's opinion.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the FA will agree with that opinion. I think the FA will be open to anyone. I think the person who it is will have to be anglicised as such. The way that Jurgen Klopp is anglicised. Like,
you
they'll
saw-
never do a Fabio Capello and bomb someone into the job who can't even speak English.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to do that again.
Yeah, you say that, but Klopp is Mr. Liverpool. Scouse not English. That's all we hear, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know, I don't know how would that sit with
Trent was
Liverpool
singing the
fans?
national anthem, so
How would that sit with Liverpool fans though? Seriously, if Klopp
I mean,
took that, do you think
but-
Liverpool
but
fans
do you
would be
know
like?
what?
I don't think they give a
really-
shit.
But by that
Don't you
logic,
reckon?
how would it be seen in Mauricio Pochettino's homeland to take the England job?
Yeah, I don't think they can't be happy with it.
Yeah.
also Klopp's got to worry about Germany, not.
I mean, the
Liverpool.
German job is available to Klopp as well.
That's what I think.
Wasn't that his dream as well?
I mean, it has to be.
Has
doesn't
to
it?
be,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I'm sure he's been on record saying that, like he'd take that job.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm sort of saying. Like, there's this bias in England of like, oh, Klopp would love. I just think like, why? He's a proud German. He was at half the games with a
He
German
was just
shirt on.
offered the America job though. Now I know America have got a tournament coming up in their backyard, and that is probably why they've done that.
Mm.
But and look, they may have just gone to him and said, will you be our manager? And he said, piss off. But you assume that maybe surely his agent was open to that.
Oh, mate, do you know who's going to be the
For
next?
that to be a conversation, surely there was a seed out there.
Maybe, but you know who's going to be, don't you? You know who's going to be the next MSN-UNT or whatever they call it
Yeah.
manager? Southgate. 100%.
No way.
100%. 100%. That's got Southgate written all over it.
So Southgate to America.
Southgate to America. Yeah. I
Pochettino to England.
no.
Is
I
it
think-
important for the
I think-
England manager to be English?
I think it is. I think it is.
I think if you win it with an English manager, it would feel more like one of your own.
No, I think if you win it
done
with whoever,
right.
it don't matter.
But yeah,
Surely.
I don't care. I'd have Pochettino. I think Pochettino would be a good fit.
I disagree. I think it should be an English manager, particularly because we're England. Like, an element of me feels like for a country the size of England, with England's history and riches, it feels a little bit cheaty to me. It feels cheaty. Like, the only reason that we could get Klopp would be because we would pay him a fortune, and we're the FA that has that. The other thing is, English managers, they're not exactly doing particularly well. Do the FA have a responsibility to back English managers? If the FA aren't going to give an English manager an opportunity, who is?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, I think that's ultimately why it will fall back to
Jamie Carragher wrote a piece. Jamie Carragher wrote a piece in the Telegraph where he said that the manager has to be English. And
it's
he
Scouse,
really broke it.
not English.
True.
Yeah, played for England. Yeah. But he really broke it down well as to, like, many reasons as to why, not simply.
I don't think that's a bad thing to want.
No,
I mean,
no.
I wouldn't care who was managing my, like, as long as they're gonna, if you win you the trophy, I think you forget all about that.
Yeah, I would certainly prefer an English manager.
But I think it's
For the
easier for the
reasons
media to
stated by
turn on him
Carragher.
when he's not English.
Yeah.
I think that's just the way.
I think the FA will go English though. We've tried the Sven, we've tried the Capello, and both were basically disastrous.
But none of them were on the
Sven
level.
couldn't stop
of,
having sex, and Sven couldn't stop, could he? Do you know what was quite
who was
funny?
it? Nancy Delolio.
Nancy Delolio, Farrier
Ulrika
Lamb.
Johnson.
Do you know what I thought was amazing about it as well? You know, like, just like culturally different. Everybody at the FA, when the FA was based in Soho Square, were like pulling their hair out. They're like, "You've just shagged the secretary. What are you doing? This is a disaster." And he's like, "What?" Sven was like, "Mate, it's fine. It's fine. She loved it."
Bring back Sven, I say. Man. But yeah, let us know who you think should be the England manager in the comments below. Do you agree with what we've discussed today? And will it be Klopp? And should it be Sven?